Good morning. I like the bantering too. All righty. Good morning, Alex. Patrick. And let's get rolling here. All right. So get to the markets here. I just have to have gold up here. Just was looking through the things as I usually do in the morning. So we've been looking at this. We thought it would get going here. It looked like it could, but the bottoming process being as it is, it's down here for another retest. So we just leave it alone and see if this begins to turn around. Good morning, Lita. By the way, Lita, I sent you email yesterday. I think we got everything fixed, but we'll see today to be absolutely sure. So give a check on that when Dan posts something in Telegram and any emails go out for the letter. Okay, so gold coming down here, really no interest. I was getting very interested here, thinking it could get through here, and it was doing exactly what it needed to do until it didn't. Right? So, it was looking great, but hey, bottoming patterns do this. So it starts the rebuilding process again. Yesterday, the ugliness was in crude oil, and it was just, I guess nasty drops like this are always interesting because as they come down to support, to see the buyers show up and you see patterns that are historically extremely reliable, for catching turns in a smaller time frame after the longer time frame is extended. And believe me, this was extended obviously on the daily chart, and we had the wide range bar, and it was coming down to supportish area down here, and the 5-minute began to turn and back down it went again, and it's like there was big bullish green candles and bottoming tails on the 5-minute, and they failed. And so here's the typical stabilization day after a wide range bar. And, trying to catch the turn on a day like this, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And honestly, with everything that we do know about technical types of trading, the actual turning point is tricky, whether it's like gold, as we were looking at that daily chart, or whether you're doing multiple time frames analysis and looking for the turn. The patterns are the same from the past. Which one works and which one doesn't? There are concepts that we put together that increases the probability, but in a particular moment, we really don't know. And that's what makes trading difficult for all of us, in that, and eventually you get to a point in your experience and development that you accept you don't know, and you press the button and you see what happens. And money management is the key to doing that successfully and not getting wiped out. So anyway, typical stabilization day here. And awesome, Alex. You said you were gonna. Typical stabilization day after a wide range bar. And now we see if this can begin to start the rebuilding process here. And we always, this was the point yesterday where it came down to, it was like, is it going to turn? And it kept dropping. And what we always do is look at, well, where's the next probable turning point? So, that's a small area, and that's, it just poked down through that a little bit. And that often happens. And, you have this little one right here. Ultimately, it went down there. And as I'm showing you this, for anyone that's new to the room, or those of you that are watching on YouTube that are enamored by the chart artists, and by chart artists, it's, the guys that have this kind of stuff on there, and, they do something like this, and then another one from here to here, and then they have certain indicators and clouds and RSIs and all that stuff. Forget about it. Get all of that crap off your chart. All you need to do is look over to the left and see where's the prior turning points, and you will find where the institutional buyers are going to give it a shot. Okay? Keep it simple, stupid. And so oil stabilizing here. Here it is on the 60-minute chart, making its grind up here into this little shelf of overhead resistance. And you can see this type of measured move that occurred yesterday. Okay, well, let's start with the ETFs here. We got a little time. So, my focus, I talked about this yesterday, was looking for this to set up as a head and shoulders bottom. Since we got our internals that gave us a signal some time ago. Yes. And so there, and someone in the room made a funny comment yesterday saying, I think your head and shoulders bottom needs a chiropractor. And yeah, it's not the prettiest ones, but you can see they come in different forms and different market environments. You see the poke down, and the head and shoulders pattern is nothing more than a new, if it's a bottoming one, a new low failure, or a top one, a new high failure with a retracement. So, this is pulled back. You had the big ugly day the day before yesterday, and yesterday continued lower, and now it's into some support to the left. So we're looking for this to begin to stabilize here. It's as simple as that. Now, I said this yesterday in the room that what needs to happen today is for us, ideally, to get a green day that retraces deeply into this topping tail bar. Now, of course, it could come down here. Patterns happen in many ways, but as we see something beginning to develop, we look for an event, right? So I refer to an event meaning, okay, that's the point in time. Meaning, so if I were to get a big green candle here, reversing this, that would be the event in alignment with this big picture that would say go long at that time. And that's what we're looking for today. So we're getting the beginnings of that here, pre-market, and the high of that bar, let's just call it 275-ish. And we're almost there, but it's got to close there. Right? Just getting there doesn't mean it's going to stay there. But this is a good start. Look at the size of this pre-market 60-minute bar pushing up into this area. So it's starting to follow the playbook here. It didn't follow the playbook when I was looking for a W bottom. That didn't happen. It went up here. It went up here with the gaps, and it wasn't what I was looking for sure. So I'm now looking for a more complex pattern, meaning a head and shoulders type of bottom. And so we have different arrangements of candles that we give names to, and they can form in different ways. So don't get hung up on being totally specific about that. Internals, I have to switch to a different page, but yes, I can. What page is it on? We can go back to that one. Yeah, okay. So this is shaping up the way I wrote about in Monday's letter. Sentiment, we actually got the buy down here, right? Down here, this set up exactly how I said it would before it happened. How the turn happened was like, wow, just the gap, and it was just didn't give the pattern I wanted. So now what I wrote about was sentiment retracing back, which it has, and the breadth internal getting towards zero. And it's just about there, right? So don't get hung up on exactness. So if we do get some selling today, right, which we probably will, somewhere along the lines, we don't know the extent of it, but this could, come down to the zero line, and historically, and that's all we have to go on, is historicals of patterns. And, that's how I come up with these scenarios, by historical patterns. Now, after a strong move like this in breadth, right, from this low point up to the high, and it did get to a higher extreme than what it has recently, the correction that follows the breadth internal will stay in the area of the zero line, not go all the way back down to the bullish line. Right? So that's what we're looking for today, or it could be tomorrow. There's a lot of economic news tomorrow. Maybe that news is what helps this follow through. So I don't know. We're looking for the event day. The internals are lined up good enough to give us a signal. And here is the day-to-day breath. And it was kind of odd that yesterday kind of ended more neutral with the selling that occurred. And, you know, when we watch what we finally call the idiots, what they're doing intraday, the option traders that are loading either on excessively, let's say, on puts or calls. And if the market is attempting to make a bottom and the idiots are loading up on calls, we've seen numerous times, it just doesn't happen. So anyway, let's continue with the other things and get Dan on. And so over here, S&Ps in the same area there. Qs, you can see, so now I'm on the futures and you can see the turn. And this is quite a sloppy type of, head and shoulders type of bottom. But, and in addition, is to share everything here about the nuances about these patterns. And I think this is the detail that we provide as an education company, Master Trader. The nuances of patterns, meaning I can just say, hey, that's a head and shoulders bottom. Okay, yeah, I can see that. But how did it form? Meaning the angles of retracement. I don't like this angle of retracement, how this came down, straight down, versus yesterday when the bottom began to occur, right? A setup was occurring before it ultimately failed. This is pre-market. Let's go to yesterday. I believe it was here as this was, sloping down. I forget exactly, as it was sloping down and was looking like it could reverse back up, and then it failed. And like this square, this was a great 5-minute pattern, right? I bought this and shared this with you in the room here. As this started to break out over here, and it looked great at the time. The daily chart was set up and the sellers just came in the market and buyers just evaporated. And that's what happens sometimes. This is how great looking patterns fall apart. Just buyers just say, well, tomorrow's another day. This is not happening here. I'm cutting my loss. I'm breaking even and whatever. But this was a great looking pattern that fell apart, and this was profitable. And, I wound up cutting it thinking, the daily chart and the turn could happen. But yesterday's green bar turned into a topping tail on the broader markets. So here's another type of sloppy head and shoulders pattern. They're all over the place. The Dow, look at the angle of retracement. And so this isn't really a head and shoulders because this showed the relative strength. You had the wide range bar. Now it gave it all up again. And so we don't have the perfect scenario here, but nobody said we were going to get perfect. So we'll see. Bonds, that's oil. We covered that. Bonds, trying to put in a low here. Don't trust it. Don't like bottoming patterns. They need to really develop for a longer period of time before they're reliable. And gold, we already looked at that, and I think that's kind of it. Just looking at what's moving around here. And anything that was showing strength kind of gave it up. Interesting, GE yesterday. Is this the turn? And I wouldn't bet on that either, but it was showing some relative strength before, it gave a little bit of it up. And I got to, hats off to this guy at JP Morgan, whoever he is, that's been calling for this thing to go down from when it was in the 20s and recently said $6. And I wouldn't bet against his analysis because he's been spot on. So we'll see what happens there. And just taking a look at the VIX here. No real fear, but it doesn't have to spike up, right? So this was the low when it spiked up. And sometimes we get good information from the VIX and other times not so much. and transports. Right, same head and shoulders kind of bottom scenario. We'll see if it can turn around here. And that's it. All yours, Dan.
Hey, good morning, folks. Thanks, Greg. Hello,
Dan
traders.
Anytime.
Yeah, I wasn't here yesterday afternoon, but nice. That square, that was a no-brainer. Little day trade there you had. All right, a couple opens, not many. We've been very light, as you know. More day trading mode. Lulu here. I've been tightening stops. Not sure if we met our 4-cent target yesterday. So I'll just keep the trailing stop. Boeing, we covered half into weakness, which was perfect. Perfect out on half. And we have a lowered stop for the back half of a call spread, expires Friday. C block, we're short the equity. CRE, we're long the stock. I'll keep an eye on that. When it's slowing momentum, we'll leg into a covered call, which is our typical strategy, and or just take profits on the long. It depends how long, no pun intended, that we want to be in the trade is what dictates whether we fool around with options to lower the cost basis to let us stay in it longer. AAOI, I canceled it this morning in the open trade spreadsheet. The entry was long equity over Friday's tail, deep retracement. And so I just said, let's just hold off. Duke was a put spread over this high, and we never got our limit. But I like the breakout daily, weekly. It was a way out of the money put spread. And unfortunately, we didn't get filled, but that's fine. Spiders also, we gave a call spread yesterday, and it might have just barely ticked up there. We'll just manage it, and it expires today. That's it there. Let's look at a bunch of gappers. SSL looks like an ADR. I have no interest, but that's a bearish gap down to 30 bucks, breaking down on all time frames. Snap, and I did the lecture last night in Dallas, Texas, for the technical and the TA Association, and it's just amazing the way we present our material, and you just see their eyes just are like in wow, moments. So that was very helpful. Snap here, gapping down under this base. So that's going to leave overhead resistance. Nasty downtrend, weekly, monthly. AMRS, gap down, but it's here's pre-market upper left. It's off the lows, but nothing to do there. TOT, that's an ADR. I have no interest, but I do want to watch some of these oil stocks. USO, I put in a little thumbnail here on the bottom right, as you can see on my screen. Could this be a wide range ending? Very possible. I like the pickup in volume on the puke point, so to speak, and it's a bullish 15-minute pre-market. I mentioned a few moments ago, it has 100% implied volatility rank. What does that mean? You look at its implied volatility over the past year, and now it's the highest it's been all year, 100%. That is the time to sell put spreads. And whether we get a directional or not for a 1 or 2 day swing trade, we'll play it by ear, but definitely interested in either naked puts or put spreads. TTD, a sloppy retest pattern, but I like the bottoming tails here at the prior low. And pre-market, it's getting through this resistance. Still in an uptrend on the monthly. That will be a put spread candidate for Friday. Today's Wednesday, so I'm still just thinking short term on put spreads, but it's an ideal environment right now, depending on how this morning's gap holds up. Broader markets on support, and this could be our turn day. So this is perfect. Could be perfect if it holds. Wayfair here, it's a mess. It's a consolidation and a downtrend. Marijuana stocks gapping down here a little bit on the heels of earnings on two of the big players here. 35.60. Absolutely no pattern. I mean, you know what? This one might even be a candidate for a condor. Is